Popularity, it doesn't just matter in high school. It actually matters when you decide what crops you want to grow on your farm as well. That's what we're talking about today on Modern Grower. Hello, growers, and welcome. I'm Diego, D-I-E-G-O. For the past 10 years, I've talked to hundreds of farmers about their farm business. I've heard firsthand from them what's worked, what hasn't, what's helped them succeed, and what's contributed to some of them failing. I learned a ton from the people doing it, and I'm trying to share what I've learned with people like you to hopefully make your journey into starting a farm or rebuilding your farm a little bit easier. We're continuing on today with our crop value rating system series. This is video 5, talking about the 5th and final criterion in the system. What this system is in a nutshell: 5 criterion. Every time a crop satisfies one of them, it gets a check and a +1. The higher the score, the closer to 5 you get, the more you should consider selling that crop on your farm. Today, it is number 5, and it's how popular a crop is. Now, let's just face it. Popularity, demand, however you want to phrase it, it matters. You can have a fast-growing crop, a long season crop, a high dollar per pound crop, a high yield per linear foot crop. Those are the first 4 in the CVR. And none of it matters if nobody wants to buy it. So things have to be popular in order for you to sell them. There has to be demand. There has to be enough demand to matter. Can't be a few people want it. Enough people want it to buy it so you can make a living doing this. Similarly, it might be really popular, but it might not be a moneymaker. So you have to be careful of that trap as well. You're going to have to pay attention to what your customers want. This can vary by market, meaning the individual demographics of, say, your geographic region. Now, I love okra in the South and Texas, and I don't know what it is in California. It could be you get a lot of chefs at your market or young hipsters that like to cook and they want more exotic things. You could want staples. You could be in a region that doesn't value vegetables that much. I've had farmers tell me, like, I can't grow salad mix. Nobody here eats salad. I have to grow things like tomatoes and stuff like that. So you really have to understand your market to figure out what works. And these things change based on our food culture and what's happening on Instagram and TikTok. They're definitely swaying people towards crops. When I was younger, nobody knew what quinoa is, and quinoa since became popular, and I think it's kind of died off again. These trends come and go. So you're going to have to pay attention to these and really know what's working in your area. And given that you're having to grow these crops, you're going to have to try and stay up around the front of the curve. Because sometimes you're planning a year ahead. Well, I noticed this crop was really popular this year. I sold out of it. If I want to do it next year, I need to start thinking about planning that now. Kale was one of those crops that came on, and it was a superfood. Everybody was talking about it in the early 2000s, 2010s, and everybody started to grow it. And then I think it's also kind of dipped. Not as many people buying kale now. Broccoli microgreens with the Rhonda Patrick and the sulforaphane are all the rage, and it'll be interesting to see that eventually dip off, because everything eventually does. So really, you're going to have to know your market, and it's going to mean getting out there, visiting farmers markets, going to local restaurants. Even if you're not selling to local restaurants, you're going to want to see what's on the menu, or scanning their menus online, looking at pictures. What are they using? If they're a successful restaurant, they're cooking dishes and people in that area like. So if people in that area like it, you can maybe sell those same vegetables to people. Now, there will be some traits that you'll see. There are a lot of common things that are usually popular everywhere. Carrots, salad mix, tomatoes, generally popular across the board. Subtlety within that. Some markets want carrots without tops. Some want it with no tops. Some want cherry tomatoes and others want heirlooms. Some people want certain types of salad mix. So there are nuance there. You're going to have to figure this part out. There's some risk associated with popularity, market saturation being a big one. If everybody knows that something's popular, everybody's going to start carrying it, and then suddenly you're no longer unique. Chick-fil-A always had the chicken sandwich. Then Popeyes came out with their rival chicken sandwich about 5 years ago, and everybody's like, oh, Popeyes is better. Then Burger King had one, and McDonald's introduced one. Jack in the Box has got one. Now everybody had like a chicken sandwich, and it wasn't so special anymore. So realize you probably aren't the only one following these trends. There will be some competition. There will be risk of overproducing something and having the market also overproduce it. Now nobody can sell it. There can be perception and demand issues. Things that are initially unique eventually become not so unique anymore. The Stanley Cup. Everybody watching this, if you have a female in the household, you probably have at least one Stanley. Now there's other companies making things that look very close to Stanleys. They're less of a unique thing than they used to be because they're everywhere. So when they're everywhere, they become less special. The perception of them is, it's not as cool as it was. Demand goes down. So you have to be careful of that. Unique colors, unique varieties, shapes of fruits can all fall prey to this. This isn't going to bulletproof you from ever making misstep or stop you from making missteps by selecting the wrong crop. But I do want you to be aware that you can succumb to this if you're not careful, if you're not at least paying attention. This has been a bread and butter crop for me for the last 3 years. Now nobody's buying it. Maybe the market's moved on. They just don't care. So do a lot of market research, monitor trends, be careful on your timing, diversify. You don't want to have all your eggs in the basket, even though something is crazy popular and you're selling a ton of it. Be careful misallocating too much production to that, because if the bottom falls out, you're that much more vulnerable. So you're trying to ride the trends as long as you can, as hard as you can. That sounds a little dirty, riding long and hard. Watch going in niche and specialty markets. They can be amazing. Edible flowers could be an example of that. I can grow them for bars and bakeries, but that market could also be fickle. Selling to restaurants can be challenging. If that bakery that I'm selling the edible flowers to goes out of business, or the bar going out of business, restaurants don't pay their bills on time, there are some challenges there in these niche markets. So popular things that customers want, it also goes for your customers. Restaurants can be super trendy and then they're not trendy anymore and they're not paying you. So be careful where you're selling to, because there can be some popularity trend there. You need to probably do some education here, because there are ways I think you can make stuff potentially popular, introduce it to your customers and see if you can get them to like it. You have to be careful doing this. I don't know that I've talked to too many farmers who have taken a no-name crop and suddenly made it really, really popular. You need the Gordon Ramsays and peoples like that of the world to set those trends. So don't think you suddenly growing tatsoi, you're going to have it be all the rage in your local city. You might be able to make it work, but it's very hard to do the converting to customers on your own. You're more a provider of the product based on how they view that product from the outside versus somebody who's setting the trend. Yes, I think you could potentially do that, but you're riding the wave. You're not. Who's the guy in the ocean? Zeus? No, it's not Zeus. Aquarius. You're not out there in the ocean shaking the ocean, making the waves. You're riding it. You might have to do some education on some of these crops. So say you think, wow, something's really popular in California, where Diego's from, not so popular here in Indiana yet. I'm going to try growing that. You could. Early on, it may require a lot of education, tasting samples, giving stuff to people to try. If it works, you're ahead of the curve. You have to tell stories about these crops. How can I use it? It tastes like spinach. You cook it like you would spinach. There's that type of thing. Don't always chase what might be working well for somebody else. It might be unique to their customer base. So one farm might be doing something amazing and you try and grow it and your customers are like, what is this? We don't get it. So be careful of just blindly chasing a hot crop. Adapt as needed. Don't be afraid to admit you picked the wrong thing. Color, variety, crop. Just because you grow it doesn't mean you have to harvest it all. Sometimes it's better to call a loss and just till it in. If something's not selling, it's not selling. We all make mistakes. I've ordered products before that people don't want. And I've learned from that. And I've learned to test products much more slowly and much more carefully. So if you're on the fence about if the market will think a product is popular, grow a little bit and see if you can sell the little bit first. If you can, then you grow a little more and try and sell that. And you give yourself confidence and learn along the way. Don't grow half your farm in it out of the blue. We saw this in CBD. We saw this in cannabis. A lot of people, when that became legal in states, started growing CBD marijuana, THC-based marijuana for dispensaries. And a lot of those people are out of business now. They didn't make money doing it. It became over competitive. Everybody chased the trend. It put so much supply out there, it drove the prices down. I don't know the whole story of the market. I'm not a pothead, but I have a neighbor here that used to sell that stuff and they went out of business selling to growers. So that market's definitely been hit. So popularity is definitely important. It's for sure a factor you should consider. It's a bit of a art, not a science. If you look at some of the other factors in the crop value rating system, short days to maturity, that's a science. That's a known. I know what crops are short days to maturity. I know what crops have high yield per linear foot. I don't know what's popular. And even the definition of what's popular could vary farm by farm. Does what's popular mean I sell out? Well, what if I only brought 20 bunches? Does that mean it's popular? Maybe not. Does it mean I sold $500 worth of the crop? So you need to decide on your market for your own customer base what works. But if we do have to distill all this down, it comes down to you have to have demand on a consistent basis for the crops that you grow at scale. I need to be able to sell enough of everything that I grow at a profit to make a living. If I can't do it, then what am I doing in business? Selling something that I perceive to be popular, but not enough of it to matter, doesn't matter. So there's no point in planning a quarter of a bet of something that's going to generate $50 in sales other than it being a trial. Because where does that $50 get me at the end of the day? So you're thinking, I need to move volume because I want to make a living. What are the crops I can sell a ton of? Within those crops, what's popular? Are there popular colors, leaf textures in lettuce? Are there popular flavor profiles with chefs, with farmers market customers, with grocery stores? Can I grow it? Is it popular at a certain time of year? And if it is, can I try and be the first one to market with that crop to get a premium? If I grow it when it's not popular, so some things coming out of winter, people might be loving greens, heavy greens, kales and stuff like that, or they want some spring flavors, fresh carrots. And if you try and give them something too wintry, whatever that means, they might reject that. So focus on crops with proven demand, adjust production to trends, educate customers, differentiate, think long term to try and optimize your own profitability, your own farm's business sustainability. That's what we're after, a sustainable farm business. Use this as the fifth and final criterion in your crop value rating system. When evaluating crops, take everything that we've talked about in these previous 5 values into consideration. Score your crops. Think about these factors. They're not gospel. They're not guarantees of success, but it should hopefully help you whittle down that list, get rid of the obvious losers, and at least take the ones that have the chance to be potential winners and slide them to one side and narrow that list down. If you want to hear more about this topic or anything that we did in the series or anything in market gardening, I'm happy to talk about it. Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching this video. Until next time, be nice, be thankful, and do the work.